All right.
Okay, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. Welcome to the board meeting of the Environmental Charter School. We're going to start with roll call. So this time we'll just go around for the board members. Adam Tobias.
David Turner.
Megan Kreider.
Kristen Long. Eleanor Magny.
Stan O'Loughlin.
Okay, and pledge of allegiance. That about it.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our mission, the mission of ECS is to educate each student to high academic standards using innovative curricula that will foster knowledge, love of, and respect for the environment and preserve it for future generations. We grow citizens. Our vision, every ECS graduate will be an actively engaged citizen driving thoughtful change in the world around them. I'll stand for this part because this is a very auspicious moment. I want to welcome and recognize the 15-year ECS veterans and some of their families. These are the ECS lifers who've been here since the beginning. Several of whom have taught my children, and your dedication is greatly appreciated, and it's really special to have you here. I think there will be, I think that maybe some of you have prepared some things that you want to say. Actually, is that just what you go? Okay.
I wanted to second that and say, it's a real pleasure to me to see somebody's worked with you for a long, long time. That, as I go through these schools, we can get out those places in those places and spaces. It's really, really important. It's certainly massively important for our faculty, especially for our students. And so what we see before us here is just a very, very strong improvement given many years. And you said some of these folks taught your kids, some of these folks taught my kids too. And so, I have a special connection with all of them. So for me as CEO, thank you. And this is a real gift to our community. And it continues to get here. And I see you really good at different spaces. And you went to my office, Joe, every so often when I get to the end of the corridor. Yeah, I mean, that just goes on. We have a relatively, I wanted to say newish board, but new-ish, right? Some less of a long tenure. So the thought was, if we could invite our 15-year veterans, take a little time to share with this board some of the things that were used here, some of the things that you hope will remain here, and some of the joys that you gain from the work that you do in this space. And if there's any complaints too, here is a board full of folks, so have at it. But thank you. Always one job. But after a long day teaching, I was a teacher once, and believe me, it's all left of you after a long day, hurting the wilderness. These guys spend time with us this evening, so let's kind of metaphor who they are. Have at it. Joe's first, apparently.
I thought about a long time, and what 15 years is a lot. And I used to study the idea of Pittsburgh, and I was asking a friend to interview his cousin midway through the lesson. What happened to Priscilla? I told her this place was really nothing right now. Look here. She did tell me we would hire her and then take up the community services from you and stuff. So I started to come out here over a period of months. It's taken me a couple months. Finding his job really tied in part of the school. And one day by December, you've reached that conclusion. So I can't thank you enough for having done that. Re-energized my career, re-energized me, be involved with very young students who have a mission and vision, who care about the students, we were all around the students, and working with smart people, good people, funny people. There was a point with John, Nicole, Kate, and I, we sat together for many years, and at one point, as Nicole and Joe know, we were in one space, where I sat at my desk and put my arm out, went like this. But it was great because that helped, I think, us with keeping the school on track, focusing on what was important. And I really can't emphasize that enough. The mission and vision of the school, I truly believe in, as I've always said, my wife said, I wish this had been around when my kids were young. And I look at what John and Danny have done, keeping us focused, growth that we're making, tremendous. Growth we've shown, I'm so happy to be here. And I end this with one thing which many people know, I said this many times, I've said to my wife said to me, on Sunday night, she was at first ready, she said, this is great. And I said, what? She said, you're not depressed. I said, what do you mean? And I can say, after 15 years, it's still the case. And I thank you for your past boards, for your support with other students. And this group.
Me? Let's stand.
Or just standing up here.
Hey, Sam, I have a microphone. No, so I've been here 16 years. As Joe and I, Heather, Melanie, we, in the teacher's lounge, all stood around the table, little tiny group, we got down and introduced ourselves, that's when we started. And, so that's 16 years ago. I will say today, 16 years later, I still love being part of ECS, truly. Teaching is really hard. It has lots and lots of challenges, which I think any teacher, any district would say that, but I truly do love being part of ECS. I plan on retiring from ECS. Not next year. Maybe 8 years, that's fine. But truly, I mean, my team, my third grade team, I mean, I think ECS, the teachers are so tight and really supportive of each other. I am so fortunate to have the team that I have that I teach with. I think that all of us have the same vision from the very beginning. You know, ECS, it's had its learning curves, we've done different things, but I think what we've always come back to is that the love of environmental education, how important that is to the mission. I think that the work we've done at the university has been really huge and monumental. And it's something that we continue to keep doing because I think that never stops or changes. I think about, as I teach math and environmental literacy, and I think about the work that we do in environmental literacy, and the fact that ECS, I can be very, very open-minded, and we can talk about have really deep conversations about things that are really big in the world around us, whether, right now we're learning about civil rights, and I think that to have kids in a school where you can openly talk about really important things is really, really important. Especially when I look at like other schools or friends who are teachers elsewhere who are just sort of dabbling in these big issues, right? Or have to kind of tiptoe where we can, what are we doing, right? We're growing citizens. So I think in so many ways that the fact that the work that we do here and how it's so important. Obviously the academics are important in all of those, there's obvious things, but all the other things, I think we have this beautiful park that we use and love. And the fact that kids, I feel like, come out here, I know I taught Sophie, John's daughter, Livian's MT. And I just think about, like, I see these kids grow up, I see them graduate and have like a different perspective sometimes. Others don't get in the schools they go to because they're only focused on the academics, where I feel like the kids at ECS come out very well-rounded. And so, I always said I was gonna talk a little bit. I can keep going on and on. But truly, I think that, ECS is a wonderful institution who grows every day. Again, you know, we learn, we do new and innovative things, and I just think that it's a special place. So that's it.
So I wanted to go after Becky because Becky, Joe, and I were third grade team together for about 2 years. And so when I got John's email, the first thing I remember is walking into this school building for my interview, and it was in complete disarray. And this was like in May, knowing that we were opening in August, correct? Walked around the corner to that first classroom, and there were makeshift desks that John and Christopher Gans and Melissa Romano were sitting at, and walked out of this building like, oh wow, like there's no way this school is opening in town. But we did, and we worked so hard as a team to get this school together. It was like a staff of like 16, right? It was so small. But we were here till late at night trying to get the school together. We were putting desks together and bookshelves together and getting our classrooms together. And our kids come in on the first day, and midday we start to realize, like, well, these kids need to be dismissed, and we have no idea where they're going, where the bus kid's going, who's walking. Like, we had no clue. It was like one of the many things that we forgot to think through. And so I think the last group of kids left at like 5 p.m. And we were here for another hour and a half, trying to figure out dismissal for the next day. And I tell this story because it never has faltered, no matter how big we have gotten, that we are a family that is committed to the mission, the missions of ECS, the ECS mission and vision, and the E&D mission here at ECS. And even though we've gotten big, we have different jobs, and we don't see each other very often, we're in different buildings, I just feel like we are so passionate and so inspired by one another that we will continue to do this work. And that's something that anybody, I think, would say, like, what do you value at ECS? And I think it's just that we're a family and we will continue to be a family. So these folks sitting in front of me is just so emotional. Knowing John at the end of this year will no longer, we won't see him every single day. It's heartbreaking to think about that, John. So I just want to thank these folks sitting in front of me. John, Nicole's been here, but he's been here forever. And to my family also for allowing me to be able to do the work that is inspired me to be here on a daily basis.
So just thinking about how much we've grown over time too, right? They just did the PBS for public school one yesterday. And now these are pretty advanced on the home office. When the kids were public schools in the old days, there's a real possibility that we might shut down. All of our ducks are in order. That's yet another spot where everybody was, all hands on deck. Like, let's make sure you've got everything we need now. Once in a while, the PBS walkthrough is coming around. Once in a while, I get like a request, like, hey, you have that document, just one document, as opposed to, binders and binders. Because there's a real possibility we're going to be here. That's a side note. There you go. But we've grown so much, right?
And I've been here for the same one for 10 years. And when I saw Don's email, right away, we had growing into first year ago. I had a parent ask me, they want to hear about the curriculum. What do you learn? What's the day look like? What does our kids do during indoor recess? All of them just so we're chatting about this thing. And they asked me how long I've been here, and I said, about 16 years. Why are you here? A great question. And my first answer, was, oh, my colleagues, like, I love the people I work with. And of course, I'm here for the kids. I love to teach for a long time. I was 8 years old, and here I am. But I can do that. But I'm here. 16 years, so, that's my colleagues, they're so supportive. We've been through happy times and sad times, so I feel like I think with anyone, get support, you can chat with them. But collaboration. That's it. I think lab in the primary building. I put my notes that here. There are 4 things, right? And so like my first was hiking boots, right? So like when these first, like go out fashion sneakers. We started our school. Like that was the ECS uniform. I feel like it was the shirt that Dwight's wearing, and then we all had hiking boots. Some of my best memories are adventure trailing with Andrea and the kids out in the park. I used to, so imagine this room had no cafeteria. That was my classroom. It had cubicles. It was like a cubicle anyway. And then out here was where all the good stuff happened. All of our community meetings. Yes. I mean, that was like great that like it didn't work. John had to say that I was breaking it. We were breaking it with our volume. It just didn't work. But that love of being outside, of the environment. This school, Kathy that's at school, I like Becky. I'm retiring from the school. My colleagues inspire me. I love the creativity that I have in my work every day. I would love to, I'm primarily, we're not as close to the park, so I would love to like make that a goal. I think I might have said that in my staff song. My goal to get out to the park with my students a little bit more and use that outdoor space a little bit more. It's just harder with the little kids kind of further, but yeah, so I'd like to do that. But that's like kind of what has kept me here. It's unlike any school. It doesn't seem static. We're always changing and growing. So yes, I will be here for the long haul. And if there's any questions that any of you still have, feel free to pepper us because we've got the institutional knowledge.
I came notes. My name is Amy. I work at primary second grade and to start thinking of work and doing that really special. And it is such an honor to teach at ECS. Joy to be part of the day-to-day and colleagues and students and community. Thank you for that. And I just wanted to say that the second I stepped foot at ECS Urban, this was very and at the time, in 2009, I knew that it was a school that was growing up to grow into. And then as a team effort, there's so many people that have contributed to that. ECS
Welcome to, I also did a little bit of work. I can get. What? You don't need a photo. Is there a stage or a microphone? I'm Andrea Schulman. I taught fourth grade here when I arrived. It was our first fourth grade, and taught with or taught kids of many of them in the community in this room, which is really cool. I taught fourth grade, and then I moved into the middle school, the upper school counselor position, fourth through eighth grade. And when we opened the middle school in Garfield, I went there. So I did 10 years with the middle-ish, plus 45 or some years as the school counselor. And then just this year, I moved down to primary with K2. And also, it's like every group I'm with, like, I love this group so much. Like I could never imagine being in the middle, and now that I have, I'm really excited about the little ones too. So, having experience as a teacher and a school counselor, I've been reflecting on all of the big kind of things I've seen and experienced through at ECS. Most of them, like as my supervisor, kind of like. Definitely supervisor, but also someone who just helps me as a mentor through all of these different positions. My husband always says, if you didn't enjoy it, you couldn't. So that leads me to one of my first points, that ECS has been trying to like come up with a metaphor, which Cole loves metaphors. So if we had a diagram of ECS in summer camp, there are a few things that feel similar. ECS is not camp, but much longer than camp. There are a few kind of feelings that overlap. The first, and you've all said it, is the sense of belonging. The relationships that we have with our colleagues are trusting friendships with many of them. It really spans far wider than colleague relationships, or it's really life friends, not just work friends. Because of that trusting friendship, we also work really well together and have a really good flow together. I think back to a few really tragically tough moments as an ECS community, and the words that were spoken by Julia Robinson, our former middle school principal, and the supports that we were able to offer and mobilize immediately comes back to not only the support for each other that our team has, but also the student-centered approach, like you mentioned, Dwight, that is the center of everything we do. There's very little convincing anyone needs to do. It's for a student. We're like, oh, I understand. It's like, we can make this happen as long as we understand what's needed for that student to be successful. The other part, yes, is this exploration of the outdoors paired with getting out of your comfort zone in some way. So you're learning new things about yourself. Our work on our anti-racist committee at middle school really led us into very tough conversations of growth and breaking down systems that we had and rebuilding them. Similarly, with the exploration, letting kids go outside into a city park is not necessarily a comfort zone of every teacher, because as a teacher, you're like always like, what do we do? How do I control the environment? And that's uncontrolled. Because of that, there's imagination, curiosity, joy, wonder. But it takes a lot of energy and a lot of intentional planning and safety to be able to pull those things off. Another similarity, I think, is just like a general intensity of the energy that's needed. Teaching is hard anywhere. And counseling is hard anywhere, but the work that we do at ECS is so thoughtful, is so rooted in our values and grounded, and it takes a whole lot of energy.
There's no way that this can just be just our job, even when we try to set our boundaries really well. So it is something that's just very intense. And then the last kind of parallel to summer camp is like that intense need to take care of each other and rest. And so I always want to keep in our minds, you know, both as a counselor, but also just as someone working in a school, we want this work to be sustainable for us. We want to see this through for our retirement at ECS, of course. So I want to make sure we are taking care of our people, taking care of the students. They're doing really hard work as well, but really taking care of our staff too, and really keeping an eye on how people are doing. And as we support whole child, I had to bring up our whole child support for student services, because that truly is such a benefit of being a school counselor here. I have so often felt that like a whole staff or whole grown-up support too, which is another reason that led me to stay here. So thank you so much, and that's just the, if you have any questions. Okay.
Anyone else?
I'm serious.
Well, a huge thank you for sharing that, all, that life of ECS over the past 16 years, everyone's experience, it's a joy to listen to. A huge thank you. And I hope you all got every time, lots of nods and smiles, and so thank you. After a long day to come and give that gift, it's truly wonderful. Thank you all. And Adam?
Yeah, if you'll indulge me, I'll close this section of the meeting with a favorite quote of mine that was given to me on my first day of medical school by Catherine Graham. She said, "To love what you do and to feel that it matters, how could anything be more fun?" So thank you all for coming. Okay, we'll move on with our agenda. You guys are welcome to stay and watch or take off and go to your families. But thank you for coming. Latanya, do we have anyone for public comment? Okay. All right, so we're going to go to the consent agenda. I'm going to pull out one item, which is the SOUR contract, which we'll talk about separately. And does anyone have any other items they want to extract from the consent agenda? Okay, so I'll read the resolution then. Resolution 2024-3-2116. Be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the school that the consent agenda for March 20th, 2024 be approved. I have a motion.
Motion. Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the consent agenda is passed. Okay, and then the SOUR contract is for air conditioning in the intermediate school, which there's some urgency to do this before the weather gets warm. There was no problem with the bid, but just for our internal process, we were hoping to get 3 quotes before we selected one, and I think we only had 2. So we do like this. I believe the school likes this quote, but my thought talking to the team here was that we can ideally pass this vote conditionally to accept this contract if no other bids come in the next 1 week from today. If we do get another bid and it's lower, then we will reconsider both of them for next month. Does that sound like a reasonable path forward? Ideally, get this done?
Yep.
Sure. Okay. All right. So any discussion about the actual contract for the air conditioning? For this room? Okay.
Yeah.
No one's, no one's.
Here.
Nobody wants to keep air conditioning on. Okay, so that'll be another resolution, Latanya. So I guess we'll call that 2024-3-2117 to conditionally accept the contract with J.A. Sauer for intermediate school cafe air conditioning, if no other lower bids are received in the next 1 week. So I'll motion in a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Okay, I'm just gonna, maybe, we lost Chelsea, never mind. Okay, so we'll go to board education then. So Dr. Krebs.
Yeah, so the senior packet is the calendar for the school year. That is the calendar right now, the calendar, we'll use that calendar as it is, we just have traditional school days. And right now we're building in, so we can have the time, all of the events for the year. That's just taking us a little bit extra time, we're not doing really about here about events. Now we're going back to the calendar. So traditional first day of school students is on the 20th. And then the last day of school will be our ECS Thursday again on June 12th. And then we have pretty much the standard we have this year. Not much half days, planning days, super quarters. We do our doing 2 live conferences, which include our students are coming in with the conferences with their parents, and the rest of the day will be in there are 199 full half days. Yes.
One question, do you know if there's, staff days on the line? So that's not full.
We, in the past, tried to line up all of our arts and off with ECS. This year, we took a little bit of a different stance. We're making decisions about what's best for our students. So, we did not line them up necessarily. Some of them will.
Maybe I'm just missing something. Looking at this, but I see that it's the last days, it's the 12th, but then it looks like there's some other days that aren't as, school for students, like the 30th of June, 19th.
So those are for our full staff. So we do have some staff that are 12-month staff. And so last year when we did the calendar, we left July off, and our staff is 12 months. Those are, what their July looks like. So we put it on this year. We have historically closed for the July 4th holiday, so that's June 30th through July 4th. And then June 19th, which is the holiday, and our calendar in the summer, we run Monday through Thursdays in July.
In other words, so I should read those, or we should read those as, because in the key below it says that
Correct.
middle school for students, but we should read them
Yeah,
for staff.
no staff. It's hard to put another.
And was there significance similar to the gray, 30th, gray, and the first, second, third, fourth, and all those Fridays, or?
Yeah, so that's what it is. So June 30th through July 4th, that's our June 4th holiday, and then those Fridays.
So I don't think like every day needs to match up with PPS, but these big vacations match up with PPS.
They are doing an spring break the week before Easter also, so that will, and then also our winter break lined up. The one issue with spring break next year is just to know that the PSSA schedule, the way that it falls, PSSA start on Monday the 21st. Spring break is going to be right before that, so students will be off that week before the for public schools is having that spring break that week. There are other schools in the area that are moving their spring break up. That might be the holiday. But we kind of checked with our principals and our teachers, and they were concerned that it would be off then 2 weeks. Break, and then when they actually go on travel or the holiday, they would also have to be off that week. Right before the day started to get kids to. So what we usually do is put this calendar out for families, and then if we do have some feedback, like, we'll come back to
Good.
Yeah, and next, I have asked two of my team members to come here now, or to the able to come here. This is Steve, staff member, and Cindy, the member. These two wonderful executive directors of academics, one for K-5 and the GO for K-12. They work tirelessly to make sure that our academic program is as wonderful as the very most like from the staff. They are really here, we have a team that supports them and supports our teachers and making that kind of thrust into their day. So I asked them to come share a little bit more about what they do for us and to give you a little bit more education of our academic team. So they are really like my right hand. They really help everything run smoothly. I can't thank them enough for all the work that they do. You both are amazing. Thank you. I hope that you get to share a little bit about what you do. So we put a PowerPoint together, of course. So again, my name is Melanie Calvert. I'm the executive director of academics. As you've heard, I've been here since the very beginning. I started off as a third grade teacher, and then became an instructional coach, curriculum director, and now executive director. So worn many hats over the last, I guess, 16 years. Well, everybody else is saying as well.
I am Cynthia Gilmer. I am relatively new to ECS. I came in the summer of 2021 after 19 years in the classroom, 10 years of medical research prior to that, and I came on as a curriculum director and then left for a couple of months and then came back because of it's such a special place. I came back as an executive director. So I'm glad to be here. Oh, yes. So this is what we do. So I'm just going to spend a few moments talking about our roles and our responsibilities as executive directors here at ECS. And then we're also going to just kind of highlight some of the things that we've been paying special attention to try and progress ECS. So we're going to talk about our overview of our roles and responsibilities, our priorities, and then give you an opportunity to ask us any questions if you have them. Okay, so I'll just this one. So one of our primary responsibilities, and we just listed 4 there. There are many, many other things that we do, but we pull these ones out as the main ones. The first one is to provide strategic leadership across all of the schools. One of the things that I absolutely love working with Melanie is because she's been here. And so the 612 program is relatively new. And so we want to make sure that there's cohesion and coherence from K to 12. And so that strategic leadership, we pay a lot of attention to how we want to enact things academically, culturally, programmatically, and in that we look at our data, we make intentional moves together to make sure that, even though the schools across the campus are different and unique, but we want to make sure that this essence stays, and so we provide strategic leadership to make sure that happens.
And the second big thing is every year we have superintendent priorities, so we ensure that those priorities are uplifted through our academic vision and our performance goals. So this year, all of our superintendent priorities are on equity. So our first one is academic equity, and I'm assuming you have all heard of these before from the very beginning. But what we have done around academic equity is really start with our teacher leader group, who also outreaches to teachers and associate directors to ensure that we are being warm demanders in our spaces as leaders, but also in our classroom. And being a warm demander means creating a safe and caring culture, but also holding everybody to high expectations through additional support. So it's not a space where we're saying, like, well, this was my expectation, so you better meet it. It's actually meeting folks where they're at, meeting students where they're at, and really helping them to meet the goals that were set forth at the beginning of the year. Our second one is around culture and equity, with a focus on crew 612 and really focusing in on our home base, making sure we are really focusing in on creating a safe culture and learning community that students can access academics. And then our third is equity in math. And so we have partnered with a consultant from Duquesne University, Dr. Adeju, and we're really focusing in on learning tasks that allow students to take risks, learn from those risks, and really increase their discourse and thinking within the classroom. So that's how us as executive directors are really supporting the superintendent priorities.
Our third role and responsibility is to make sure that the curriculum is as high quality as it can be. We want to make sure that it's innovative. We want to make sure that it's aligned to standards so that students are meeting academic and graduation requirements. But most importantly, we want to make sure that at all levels we are aligning our curriculums with our mission. Both our, ECS mission of equal literacy, but also our ED mission. We want to make sure that our students are aware of, issues of social justice and equity and things like that. And so we want to make sure that at each level and on each campus, that our curriculums reflect our wantingness to make sure that we grow citizens in the most honoring and thought-provoking way.
And the last is just that professional growth across the system, so not just for our teachers, but also for our leaders. So we have a curriculum instruction and assessment team, where we're pouring in some professional development for our administrators, our associate directors, our assistant principals, who else is on the team? Our special ed director, and really ensuring that the mission, the superintendent's priorities are also within our leadership team, who we know is then going and reaching out to the teachers as well. Our initiative throughout the district is around student engaged assessment, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in our priorities. But we are ensuring that everybody is fully aware of what that is, and we've created a professional development plan, a 5-year plan to help us to maintain us getting to the goal around student engaged assessment.
And this is our beautiful team. So Melody and I each supervise and have as supports to help us do this work, 2 curriculum and professional associate directors. And so
Yes, we have the first picture is Gail Abrams. She's our K-5 math associate director and of curriculum and professional development. And Hannah Kramer, the second picture, she is our K-5 associate director of curriculum and professional development for literacy.
And then the last 2 pictures, the third one is Megan Mueller. She is the secondary CPD AD associate director, and she is responsible primarily for math and science. So she supports those teachers at the secondary level, both in middle school and high school. And then the last picture is of Betsy Lamantina. She is providing support to staff at the middle school, and she's focused on primarily literacy, cult lit, so social studies and ELA.
And they are amazing, and they are in it with the students, with the teachers. A lot of professional development comes through this team, and they are just amazing. And Gal's been with us for quite some time, and is new this year. She actually was here maybe 6 years ago, and she moved to California, worked at a school there, and has come back to Pittsburgh, and is back here with us. So we're just so excited. Probably going to do half the things that we do with us and then our priorities. A few years ago, I think in 2018, 2019, we started a teacher leadership program to really to create teacher voice in our system. So we have teacher leaders spread out throughout the district, and they collaborate with us and facilitate our professional learning communities within the classroom. So a teacher learning from another teacher who's in that space has been really effective. And they also are our model classroom. So if we have a new teacher that has come in, or if we have a teacher that may need a little bit more professional development, we're able to then use their space to really help to grow that teacher's expertise.
So our second priority is the student engaged assessment system, which is really a program or system of about 8 instructional strategies. 4 of them are strategies that work well and teachers can implement them in their classroom as leaders. And then the remaining 4 are school-wide structures that can be implemented. The purpose of the student engaged assessment system is to engage learners. So these are high engagement strategies that will really allow, if implemented well and with vitality, will allow students to step up and become leaders of their own learning. And so we're not just doing this work from a teacher to a student, we're asking the students to get involved in their own learning. And so we're teaching them how to navigate those systems. And so this is a practice that our teacher leaders, it's kind of like training the trainers. So we pour into the teacher leaders, and then the teacher leaders then go out and they pour into the schools. And so this is a district initiative that we've undertaken a couple of years ago. I was fortunate at this school that I worked at prior to coming to ECS. We worked with student engagement assessment practices, and so when I first interviewed with Natalie, and she said she was, well, I mentioned that I was doing them, and she said, Dr. we're doing it. And so it's been a joy to just come and continue the work that I started at another place.
And then we have professional learning communities, and this is where a lot of this work is happening. So our teacher leaders facilitate twice a month professional learning communities, either before school or after school. And this is where we're pouring in that professional development. Like I said, I've been here for quite some time, and we have tried PLCs for quite some time, and they have never worked. So it's really exciting to know that they have been really successful. And again, I think it's this idea of teachers learning from another teacher. They're able to say, like, well, you know, here's a practice, and we know not every practice is perfect, or not every practice looks the same for every teacher, every content area. So they're able to utilize these practices and then really understand them to be able to have teachers understand what it looks like in their content.
And I think that the last priority, the curriculum review, this year we're focusing on ELA because Pennsylvania came out and said we need to revamp everything. And so we had to pivot to a structured literacy program for ELA. And so we're really trying to think through in a way that is not too foreign to our teachers, but also meets the requirements that the state has for us, and really meets who we are as ECS. And so we're reviewing the ELA curriculum. We are starting with a small group of leadership. There's a consultant that we have that's working with us, and we're really trying to make sure that we meet all the requirements, like I said, of the state, but also that we stay who we are as far as ECS is concerned. We're going to start doing curriculum reviews for all of our content areas because we do not want to stay stagnant, and we want to make sure that, you know, we grow as education grows. And so the ELA is the first curriculum review that we're really undertaking at a really deep level, and then we'll do other ones. Yeah, that's us in a nutshell. Any questions? I'll talk and go up.
Oh, yeah. I have a question for you. I'm Brett. Oh. Thank you so much. So I have a couple questions, but the first one is regarding this is something that came up in the last board meeting. I just kind of wanted to get your take on it. It seems like Pennsylvania is doing more on environmental. There's now more of a requirement on environmental teaching. Cheers, did I get that right? Did I get that right? Steels, okay. Okay. Can you speak a little bit more about how you guys are approaching that? You know, we are an environmental school, but also we could be at the forefront of other schools on this front. So I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so standards actually, which is really, what's really lovely about them is they are written the way NGSS standards are written. And so they have the core practices within it. And so we are just ensuring that our K-5, I could speak, our environmental literacy, we started actually exploring those standards last year and this year. And so we're really looking at this cross-curricular integration and how we can pull and, not silo other content areas to bring in literacy and technology and arts and all of those pieces into the curriculum through our environmental literacy program. And then just making sure that we are making that connection to out the door learning, getting kids outside into the community through project-based, problem-based, and self-study projects throughout, the K-5 system.
Yeah, and at that 6 to 12 level, I don't believe that the middle school at this point, they're still with the NGSS, but in the high school, we do have our environmental science teacher. She also teaches physics at the 12th grade level, 11th to 12th grade level. But she was one of the people that went to the state, went to Harrisburg and worked with the STIL standards. So she's very comfortable with them, and she started using them this year. And so we look at the work that she's doing with the students, and we're measuring, what was the impact that did the students learn what they were supposed to, were you able to, tie in academics, or, how are you able to implement this and embed this? And how is it different from the work that we've been doing in the past? So I think that we're going to see a shift from the NGSS to the Pennsylvania standards to the STEELs. I think it's just going to take a little bit of time for the more traditional sciences like chemistry and the biology, especially since the biology is connected right at this point to the standardized test. Yeah, so.
Yeah, because we are, I would imagine that we were kind of at the forefront of this, and it's actually really helpful for me to know that we helped set the standards.
Yeah.
Especially.
She kept saying last year, what are we gonna do when the SEALs come? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. But, yeah, she's been very, very, she is one of those teachers, I said she's quintessential kind of ECS. She hasn't been here that long, but she really tries to integrate environmental concepts in whatever aspect of both her environmental science class. She brings in a lot of community partners, and just tying those into the skills, I think it makes it really, really comprehensive. So.
Yeah, that's a great asset that we have. So, second question, which is a little bit more open-ended, but what keeps you up? I know there are things. That was pretty rosy, but I really want to know what keeps you up at night.
We have 900 plus students that are in our system that come from all types of different backgrounds, and just ensuring that we are being innovative and preparing them for their next step ahead is what keeps me up at night. So education is ever changing. It's never stagnant. So we maybe wake up with like a new law, a new rule, a new act, whatever it is. Structured literacy is this big. That's another thing that keeps me up at night. The curriculum we have been using is the one where it like all stems from like this negative, and so just ensuring that we are doing our due diligence for every single student who walks into our doors. And, piggybacking off what Andrea said, is ensuring that we're doing that in a sustainable way, that our teachers also are able to get every morning and walk into that classroom and do that work.
I think for me, I started at charter school, so my first job was at a charter school. Just coming into ECS because of the closeness, because, they've been around for a while and they have a mission that's very, very unique. And it's a beautiful thing to hear about, all of the accolades, but as a new person, one of the things that particularly keeps me up is that my ideas may not be homegrown to ECS. And so figuring out a place and space where I can be a part of your team, but still be who I am, a leader, an executive, and, a forward-thinking person. And also, the district is changing, it's getting bigger, and, our team mission is particularly at the 6-12 level. Our demographic has changed, shifts from K-5 to 6-12. And so making sure that we stay who we are, but also making sure that realistically we're meeting all of our students' needs, their cultures, their backgrounds, their communities, just making sure that, if we're going to do this thing, making sure that we consider everybody in order to do it well. I think that that's the only way that we sustainable.
So I'm actually interested because both of you mentioned sort of finding your place and coming in every day. I see those as coming in every day wanting to do your job. I see those as related. And I'm curious from a curricular standpoint. You're talking about reworking curriculums. Can you talk a little bit about, can you tell us a little bit about how the curriculums work in general in the sense of, how prescriptive are they to teachers? To what extent are teachers able to vary from them? How are teachers able to individualize them for their own styles and to be as authentic teachers as they can?
I think that one of the beautiful things about ECS is that we want our teachers to build out their own as much as possible, because we do believe that while prescriptive curriculums give you a guideline, if you're a new teacher, that might be necessary for a while, but because ECS has its own mission and values and commitments, you're not going to get that in a prescriptive. So it's a beautiful thing that teachers have the luxury of creating their own individual curriculum with the framework being our mission and our vision and our commitments. But I think that that's a beautiful thing. We are seeing, of course, again, at the K-5, the teachers are mostly been around a little bit longer. It's more challenging at 6-12. We have a lot of newer teachers. These are teachers with less than 5 years experience. Post-COVID, plus being in an urban environment and getting used to the field of teaching. That is why the CBT team is so necessary. We do provide as much support as possible for teachers who may be struggling, and it may be that we as a team say, here's the curriculum, we're gonna start with this curriculum and we're gonna add to it, we're gonna adopt it, or we're gonna adapt it so that the teacher feels comfortable, but so that our students get the education that they're supposed to get. So the long story, I don't know, short, long, is that all of our teachers have a curriculum to read there, because we believe that that's the only way that we can meet the ECS mission, vision, and commitments. However, if a student or if a teacher needs support, we provide that as well.
Thank you.
Last question. Especially for both of you, but we know that there's a transition that the demographics change from K-5 to 6-12. That transition from 5 to 6 is, we see that there's a lot more students that are coming into the ECS programs who maybe have not been built up in the ECS way from K-5 to 6. I mean, is there anything on the curriculum perspective that you can do to address that challenge, or is there anything you want to speak to on that? I'm just curious, because I see it as data, and so I'm just kind of curious of the challenge, like how you, what you're thinking about it.
I think that, that another beautiful thing about the district is that people really want to solve the problems that are preventing us from being everything that we possibly be. I mean, floating around and having, the same thing happens from, 8th to 9th grade as well. So we're floating around having academies where in 8th grade we prepare students to go to 9th grade so that we keep them, we retain them. And the same thing, we have student ambassadors. I mean, we're trying to come up with ideas to make sure that students who come in, number one, that we retain the students. We want them to go all the way through K-12 and, the newer programs, you have to have history in order for people to trust you. They don't have history at this point. And so we're trying to, number one, we're trying to make sure that, our education, our teaching, and our learning is high quality so that, that's not an issue. The students come in and they haven't been from the district, we need to onboard them to make sure that they know who we are, they know about our culture. And so we're floating around with lots of ideas, student ambassadors, onboarding, academies, we're trying it all. We don't have one solution at this point, but that is something that isn't going to keep me up, but it is something that definitely we think about all the time. And so,
One of the things that the data also just ensuring that teachers have the professional knowledge that is needed to address the needs of students that are moving to those levels. So if you have students in 6th grade coming in maybe on the 3rd grade reading level, and have a middle school student or teacher who my training is not in decoding and encoding and those foundational skills, ensuring that we have professional development to allow them to do the job that they feel comfortable doing. And then just having 2 teachers in the classroom, special ed support, counselors and social workers, so just having the staff learning very well.
Hi, thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us. I wanted to first introduce myself, I'm Jill Serena. And then thank you for the comments you made earlier about why you love this school, and also the time that you just took to tell us a little bit about what you do here and who you work with. Because as a new board member, I'm familiar with the vision, but you've just shared a lot about how that vision comes to life with kids. So where we're focused a lot on how do we ensure the school still is running, you're the ones who are bringing the mission to the children. And so thank you for that. And just want to offer to be one more think partner with you. I know that Mandy does an amazing job, but those things that keep you up at night, those concerns about kids who are reading at a much lower level, but you're working with kids in 8th grade or something, those are problems that we have at different schools too, and perhaps thinking together can help us come up with new solutions. So as a board, we're here to help. You do your job, so please reach out if there's something we can do.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that overview and presentation. Was there other questions? Okay. Sure. Okay. All right, we appreciate you coming and
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next agenda item. We had a report emailed to us from the PCO. Hopefully, y'all got to take a look at that. I'll put another plug in on their behalf to buy your tickets to the Blooming Bash. I will be there. I'll buy anyone a drink from this table that wants to come.
So you're on the internet there.
Yeah.
Just offer to 2,000 human juice. Water.
And I don't think we have an ECS FT representative here anymore, so.
She said there's no report.
No report? Yeah, no report, okay. All right, any other business before we go into executive session?
I just wanted to share 2 things. You got a one-pager that kind of talks through the outcomes of the our plan. grant. And this is just kind of a piece of, this is the report in print form, so you have it. And a couple of artifacts that as you're thinking about the processes and systems that we're putting together, partnering with Michelle, and put in place for active grant management has been a lift. And so there's a couple of just things in there to kind of see how we're going about that process. And I just want to share with you. One of which is training teachers to think beyond tomorrow, and planning out ways in which they want to engage in some innovative practice for idea over 4 to 6 to 12 months, not next week when they need $1,000. Thankfully, Vicki has been helpful in kind of getting me into those inroads, which is why our plan has been a nice process for us so far, because now we actually can work on the team and move towards implementation. You'll see in the finance report, there's not a whole lot that's happened so far. The only thing I would say too, I was not going to do another sponsorship push this year or this semester, but the robotics team is in need. So if you do have a company, I'm really looking to try to just solidify our $10,000 with some sponsorships from corporations or businesses. If you know anyone, I have that as your second artifact in there, so you can flip that over and see some of the benefits that the organization would have. Another artifact you have in there is just the vision and mission, and you'll see the values as well as the strategic goals that are aligned with the ECS strategic plan -1. There's one that I added in there, it's 5.5. So this actually aligns back to the strategic framework document that you should all have. And then finally, I just shared with you a version of how I process with when we go for a grant, we're trying to create some habits and dispositions for our team. So the Snapdragon, it's a grant proposal review. So what I'll do after we finalize the proposal to submit, you'll see a summary. I make sure that every person that touches that grant, if we get it, has approved the fact that we're going for it. And then just a reminder, with that cover sheet, they get an understanding of what the process is. Because the thing that I'm noticing most at ECS right now is that I cannot be the writer and the creator of the grant and also the implementer. And so there's got to be this kind of congealed way of developing a project, getting buy-in, but also elevating it to the level in which the funder is interested in funding it. So if the primary school comes to me and says, well, we just want a sandbox, and I go, that's great, but no one's going to buy you a sandbox. We can think about your thinking or your strategy around play and where you want to move play, and we can go after those things to support a mission. But that training is taking some time. And so you'll see one last piece of artifact in here is how to move from funding. So these are program questions to consider that I'm bringing each meeting that I have with a teacher or an administrator to say, okay, what's the bigger question here? Yes, you want a sandbox, but why do you want a sandbox? Like, where can we go with this? So that's just a little kind of piece of evidence so that you've got some artifacts to kind of see where we are in this process. And again, the only things I would say, just to pay attention to on the first page, that number is low because we're only in the first quarter. I've taken taken my foot off of the pedal on individual donors right now, other than kind of one-offs that come to me, just to kind of give the PCO, obviously, their push for the Blooming Bash this April. I will say, if you have a chance to think about the inaugural senior class fund, we will be doing a mini campaign. I'm just trying it out, and we're bringing back the Turn Up the Beat shirts from the original Edible Schoolyard, and I have a little cohort of seniors that will be selling those at the sustainability fair and that. So Green Roots, a sustainable fun fair. And so I will be taking, and for any donation of $30, you get a t-shirt. Any donation above that, they are a collector's edition, so you will want them. They are ECS founding guardians that are graduating this year. threshold. That's right. So they wanted to bring that T-shirt back. So we're working with Kate Brennan, hopefully, to do that at those events. But that's also, if you want to table with me, more than welcome. I have another friend to table with and do some things like that. And then just a note too on expenses. We haven't created any expenses this year. We've got a couple grants in the docket, and then I have a couple of big LOIs that for bigger amounts in the next month. So that's it.
So Nicole, I have a few questions that have sort of come to me about the foundation that I was hoping you could answer. But first of all, let me just preface by saying, just to make it clear for everyone here, that Nicole has really been instrumental in leading the CEO succession search team, which has been a tremendous amount of work, and she has done that either out of the goodness of her heart or with the money that we're paying her for the foundation. But there hasn't been like an extra outlay of money for that, and so I just want to make it clear that that's a big thing that she's been working on, separate from fundraising, but still very much in service to the school. So my questions are, first of all, can you just clarify who is on your board and have they met and what's the status of your board?
So the status of we meet quarterly. Our January meeting was postponed. So our last meeting is in November, right before we were kind of trying to push the donor campaign on. Ben Witzberger, who was a previous chair of this board, is our chair, and Amy Constantine, who is also a former chair of the ECS board and founding board member, also sit on that. We have, because we're looking for a third, and there is one former board member that is on the sustainability cycle that we're looking to bring on. I have not been able to vet him yet. So there's a third that may come on. We just don't have enough of an agenda to kind of really engage folks that want to get to work.
And do you have separate bylaws?
We have separate bylaws. We have separate meetings and notes, and John also sits as a board member as well.
So could you share those bylaws with us?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, and then my other question is, what do you think that we can do to improve the messaging of what the foundation, like there's a lot in here, that's great, but I don't think that the community understands what the foundation is, how it's different than the school. And specifically, I think when they were asked to make donations, it was a little bit of a bust because people were like, where is the money going? Like, it wasn't clear what it was being used for. So what can we do you think, to improve the messaging around the foundation?
So I think, and I've said this before, I'm not a front person. I am definitely backroom. So I think as John transitions out, if that can be the voice in terms of communications as a spokesperson, I think that would be one piece to that communications puzzle. I also think that there's some bias in the community. There's some very big hurdles that I'm trying to cover that public schools tend. First of all, the PCO has had a very prominent fundraising arm for the organization, and figuring out how to untangle that has been way more complicated than I thought. So in other spaces, PTAs and foundations kind of work in tandem, right? PTAs tend to just kind of focus on the small events that are happening in schools that are directed towards students and staff appreciation. The PCO here has been really about providing funds to teachers or things like that. We were trying to shift that, and that's a hard narrative to shift because there's a lot of power involved, there's a lot of ownership involved, and there's a lot of kind of unsaid things that I think I just didn't anticipate. So I am looking for help in how to relaunch this, because we could take it one way and focus strictly on philanthropic. I think we're leaving money on the table, quite frankly, from some of our parents that are able to give, that have not been asked or asked for $25 here and there. But if we want our PCO to be in charge of that donor connection between parents, I think that that's something that I would need help with. I can use my board as well, but you all are more connected with the ECS community than my board at this point. They're looking more at the financials and, you know, where and how we're going to make this a more sustainable organization. And so I don't know the answer to that. And that's just me being completely honest. I've tried very, very different methods and it's not, I'm not sure. And also the other piece that I wanted to be clear about too is that the community is so inundated with messages. Breaking through on what platform with a new narrative has been very difficult. So I'm also wondering if I need to even break through with parents. Maybe the parent community is not our number one audience. Maybe it is teachers that are looking for, and we think about the foundation as a hub for education and for bringing in speakers and for thinking about connecting with other organizations. But I think that's something that I'm grappling with.
I think for me, and because I am the innovation side, the innovation department, and how I kind of interact with the foundation, I look at it as we're a public school trying to be progressive education. And so looking at a lot of independent schools that have this progressive education model and a mission, a very solid mission, have some more leniency to do some more innovative things. But we are public school funded, and so a lot of those funds are going to maintain the public school system so that we cannot do some of the progressive education things that we need. And so by having the foundation and having this relationship, we are able to then keep pushing our system, because right now, we are a large district, and our funds are all going to our academics and curriculum, so that we are not able to do the progressive education innovation that we set out to do, that charters were set out to do, but now really we are straying more towards public school systems, traditional public school systems, because that's our public to maintain. So that's for me how I see it, and so the PCO, I think when we were small enough, they were able to help fund a lot of the more innovative curriculum, but now it's getting large and we're trying to push systems and push programming. And so the funds that they can provide are more now just kind of also maintain some of the public school curriculum system. So little things here and there, I think, how do we communicate that more and what we're trying to push for at ECS with the progressive education and what that actually takes. And maybe that's the narrative, I'm not sure, because I understand it, so, but that's also because in my realm, it is very crucial to helping fund and push for the future education. I don't know if that helps
We're acting, I feel like I'm acting as a thorn in ECS's side to continue to push against more traditional methodology. So even in the process with our band, for example, that's forcing me to project manage some people that might not necessarily be ready or open to think about student achievement in a new way. That they've just been like, we're just going to keep doing that intervention, and that's what's working. Instead of saying, why is that intervention working? Let's start to unpack that, and then kind of continue to push. So I'm doing all the project managing, wrangling all those people while the practitioners are in the space. That's a complicated thing to try to explain to anybody. So sometimes when people ask me, I'm like, I don't know. And having funds, grant funds, allows for some of that to happen. That's obviously happens, so let's just slow down a bit, because the urgency of public school systems is to do. So with extra funds, we're able to actually challenge the systems that are happening, and allows for some of us to breathe a little bit to challenge. That all makes sense a bit. But the communication issue.
Yeah, it just sounds like we need a PR campaign to like, put this into a digestible message for the public.
Trying to also, I mean, Nicole and I are like, how do we say this on one pager? And so maybe that is a good practice, right?
I was also argue, some of this is quiet, it's not such a bad thing. that suggests we're actually pushing something forward to do. So some discomfort is not, it's just data, right? And yeah, we'll get a better messaging. But I agree with Vicky, certainly, that if we're gonna fund progressive education, we need a funding stream, and that's it, right? We just pulled in $250,000 to support that work. And I think we intend to go down that road, because ultimately money runs out for some of the innovation, which really describes who we are and what we do. So, as we fit this icebreaker in, it's gonna cause a few fissures, and here they are, right? So we've got to just pay attention to them and decide how we're gonna go ahead and market that, or at least describe it on the sheet and it's I think there's wisdom just
Questions or comments for the foundation?
Well, I'm just hearing a request for help. And so maybe you and we can think about what that help might look like. Because there's a lot of smart people sitting in this table who could, brainstorm and try to help guide and direct. Because I see the value of having funds to do extraordinary things for teachers, having teachers do extraordinary things for kids. So, but yeah.
And then covering things along the way. So Sean and I are uncovering, people don't know they have budgets and they're asking for money. So then we have to go back and say, okay, well, we need to teach you how to manage a budget. Like literally teaching a teacher how to manage a budget. So that's like finding nuggets in the weeds here of how we can get better at budgeting while also going after funds for the right things, which is not tangible but important.
And did I also hear you say not confuse the ask for funds for programmatic things with funds for parents, that like they want to do something cute for the classroom or appreciation for the teacher, and then all those asks are getting commingled,
Right.
and it causes confusion.
It causes confusion,
So, yeah.
especially if it's for, a new teacher who asks for something that might actually be off mission. They want a bunch of things from Oriental training. And parents will pay for it, and then I'm like, oh my God, why did I just, so, and then that brings us to another parent conversation saying, why are we giving these kids plastic toys? So.
And then that teacher leaves and you've got all this stuff you have to get rid of because the next teacher doesn't want it, yes.
But there's power in being able to provide money, so I get
Yeah.
the power.
Yes, and I get the parents want to provide something immediate for their kids, so those are your individual donors that can do something, have impact right away for their child then and there, right?
The plastic toys we can just burn out in the.
You're dealing with a lot.
Solved.
I really like that we broke out the individual donors section, and as we start to get more information on that side of things, I personally am feeling that that's part. So I would love to see a breakdown of ticket size. You guys are getting what percentage of dollars are coming from each. I would even say let's go at it's already here, it's like under $100, under $1,000, 5,000, 10,000. And above. At that point.
It's not.
Yeah, and I think that would be very helpful to help in case also as to, it's also not only what are funds being used for, but also sourcing of funds and also using independent sourcing. And so that arms us with everything that we need to actually create the clear communication of the patient.
Yeah, I echo what everyone was saying. Sort of, yeah, it does seem like there's just a PR question, and that's certainly not my, I don't join that. But it does seem to me that, the way I think about it is that school wants to be innovative, has to be innovative, but it also has to be a school. That's a big part of our jobs to make sure it's doing school stuff and being innovative. Foundation just has to be innovative, it doesn't have to be a school. So that's, to me, it's kind of a justification, because that's how I think about it. And it seems to me that if you have that view, then, really probably SPR is how you do this, but sort of getting to the point where this is sort of a flagship project, or, and it doesn't mean you can't do other things, but it's sort of doing everything. It's hard to sell out, little bits and pieces here and there. There's sort of some flagship project or projects or a specific focus, particularly around the environmental stuff, that is really easily understandable and articulable, even if it becomes just, some percentage of what it does. To me, that's the way, that would be a way to kind of get it to the point where there can be an elevator pitch and it has some discernible advantages. I don't know, that's just a thought.
That's good.
I'll definitely hear you on the union outline. So if you can work. I appreciate that.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion that we go to executive session.
One second, first.
All in
Do
favor?
it.
You just did everything.
I know. I know how to order.
We'll reconvene in 45 seconds.
It's all right. Lunch periods aren't that long. The kids don't sit on their butts though.
Yeah, yeah.